Hi, I'm Sandy, and today we're talking about millet. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word millet? I'm guaranteed that it's birdseed, and a lot of people are like, yeah, that's what's in my birdseed and what I put in my bird feeder. Well, you can actually eat it. It's quite delicious and nutritious. Great pun there. So millet is a really cool seed. It's not actually a grain, but it acts like a whole grain. It's high in fiber and high in protein. It's also naturally gluten-free as well. So for those of you who are familiar with gluten-free cooking, you probably used a lot of millet. You see it a lot in flour, in baked goods, and all of that type of thing. So today we're going to play around with it, and you can see the grain here. It's kind of funny looking. It's round. It's a little bit bigger than quinoa. Quinoa is really small, and I call it like a little belly button on there. It has a little dot on there, and it's blonde in color, which is kind of fun. I just toasted this. I love to toast my grains. It brings out the flavor in them and they cook a little bit better. So all I did was toast it first in a 350-degree oven for about 10 to 15 minutes until it starts to turn a light toasty brown color. And then it smells so good. It smells all nutty and delicious. So what's really neat about millet is that it actually is like in texture to rice. And so like bulgur or another whole grain, barley, they have more of a toothiness. This is more just flavor and texture of rice, and it almost is a little bit sweeter, sort of like corn, which is kind of cool. So this is a millet pilaf, super easy recipe to do at home, and I love to keep millet in my pantry. I also pop millet too. I crunch it, I create a crunchy topping by just toasting it in the oven as well. So you can do whatever you want with it essentially. So all I'm doing here, I'm heating my pot on my stove. You want it to be a pretty big pot because you're gonna be putting 6 cups of water into this. So this will feed about 6 people. And for every 1 cup of millet, it's 2 cups of liquid. So similar to rice in that aspect as well. And it cooks rather quickly. It'll take about 20 minutes to cook this instead of some other harder whole grains, which will take a little bit longer. So to my pot, I'm adding just about a tablespoon of olive oil. And then I'm going to add in my chopped onion. Play around with the flavor components of this. It doesn't have to just be onion and garlic. If you want to add some shallot in here, if you want to make this a cereal in the morning, I love to make a millet cereal in the morning as well. That's good. So I have 1 medium onion diced, so about 3/4 of a cup of onion. And then I have 3 cloves of garlic that I minced as well ahead of time, which I'm going to add to this. And all you're going to do is you're going to sweat it just a little bit until it starts to become a little bit tender and translucent. All right, and then I'm going to stir this a little bit. And I also like to I've made a, similar to like a chia pudding, but I've actually cooked this down, more like rice pudding actually, not chia pudding. But I've added this in place of rice to rice pudding, and it makes a really good dessert too. So again, fun grain. I always have this in my pantry. Cook around with it, and kind of like, I don't know, experiment with it a little bit. Don't be afraid of it. All right, so this is cooking down. Just a little bit here. And now I'm going to add in my millet directly into this. And I like to toss my grains around in the oil for just a minute to just start to toast before I add in my liquid. All right. Now I'm going to add in my 6 cups of water. I did about 1.5 cups of the millet in here. All right, so I added that in here. All you're going to do is bring this to a simmer. As soon as it comes to a simmer, you're going to reduce the heat to low, put a lid on it, and cook it for 20 minutes. Remove it from the heat. Once it's removed from the heat, you're going to fluff it with a fork just like you would rice. And then we're going to add in some parsley, and you can add in some other toppings, but I'm going to probably play around with some nuts in there too, or seeds, something like that, to add in there for a little crunch. So we're going to let this cook a little bit. It's just starting to simmer. So I'm going to cover it. I'm going to reduce the heat. I'm going to let it sit for 20 minutes. Welcome back. So our millet has finished cooking after 20 minutes. If it still has some liquid in the bottom, what's different between rice and this, you can dump off some of that water and then continue to cook it until the water is absorbed there, and then it's done. So I'm gonna let that kind of cool here. I've fluffed it with a fork already, and now I'm gonna get my toppings together. So I have some parsley, about a couple bunches of parsley, and then I'm gonna add some Parmesan cheese to it because I wanted cheese today. So with the parsley, I've picked off the majority of the stems, and now I'm just gonna chop this because I like the addition of the fresh parsley into the kind of blankness or the whiteness of the millet, the bland color spectrum. It's beautiful, but I like to add a little pop of green. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of wad this up into a nice little ball here and just chiffonade it. Chiffonade just means kind of ribbons, but you can't really ribbon your parsley. You're just kind of bunching it up and chopping it. Take out that big stem. Rough chop is good. All right, so that's my parsley. So now, show you this millet and how much it's kind of cooked up there. You can see how beautiful that is. Sort of, it looks kind of like rice. And then you can see too, I don't know if you can get a hold of this, but it's very fluffy. That's why you fluff it with a fork. And now we're just gonna kind of sprinkle in our parsley. I'm gonna save some for the top as a little garnish. And then I'm gonna fold in my Parmesan cheese, about a half a cup of Parm. And this is it. How beautiful, right? Something simple flavors that can look pretty. I'm gonna put it in a nice little bowl here. That cheese is gonna start to melt, make it all gooey and delicious. How about that? That is what I'm talking about. Some beautiful millet. Now you can say it's not just for the birds. I eat millet too, right? All right, how beautiful. So I'm just gonna top with the rest of my parsley here. And I might do a little bit of a drizzle of olive oil just to help it out on the color, because I'm gonna take some pictures of it, because why not? It's Instagram worthy in my opinion. Drizzle a little bit of olive oil on there. And you got yourself a beautiful side dish that's full of fiber and protein, good for you, lots of flavor, and looks beautiful. That's my whole thing. Nutritious food should look good, taste good, and be Instagram worthy, right? Give it a try.